It's crazy to think about how far RuPaul's Drag Race has come since its humble beginnings, all the way back in 2009. It started with a very minimal budget, as proven by the fact that its camera quality was so terrible during the first season that they had to try and hide it with its world-famous filter. It was on a very small and very niche television station logo that was made specifically for queer content, and its viewership was pretty tiny compared to where it is now. It was such a small show that Nielsen, the company that actually tracks viewership for shows, didn't even track it until its second season. Now, Drag Race is on a major TV network, has a myriad of spin-offs, international versions, and even has its own streaming service worth of extra content, Wow Present Plus. So a lot of fans are starting to get worn out by watching Drag Race, while others feel like there's just never too much. So I'm here to solve the mystery of, is there too much Drag Race? And is it oversaturating its audience? But first, make sure you are subscribed to the channel and that you're following me on all of my social medias, Instagram, Twitter, and if you are able, check out my Patreon. I just started a new series called Detective Diaries, where I will be giving my critiques and my track records for each episode of UK3, which is available at the $1 tier. All kinds of stuff, so go check it out if you are able for as little as $1. It helps out the channel immensely. Now, let's get into the video. Before we get into the nitty-gritty and answering the big question of if there is too much Drag Race, we need to go over just how much there is. Like I said, Drag Race started back in 2009 on Logo. Its first spin-off came just after the airing of Season 2. RuPaul's Drag U aired in 2010 and featured fan-favorite queens from the first 2 seasons competing to make over regular women into drag queens. See, Drag Race, y'all said from the start that women could do drag, so why did it take this long for Victoria Scone to be cast? But whatever. It's actually surprising how quickly Logo realized how successful and multifaceted this franchise could be, giving it a spin-off so quickly. Season 2 premiered with 300,000 viewers on Logo, which for such a tiny channel was a lot, and it was kind of a major deal for the network. Very quickly, Drag Race became the channel's cash cow, and with such a huge name as RuPaul as the face of it, it's really not that shocking as to why this was. Now, Drag U lasted for 3 seasons, and latter seasons included queens from both seasons 3 and 4 of Drag Race. It was not brought back for a 4th season, instead being replaced by the first season of All Stars. Now, by season 4 of Drag Race, viewership had risen more and more with every season, reaching almost 500,000 viewers for the premiere episode of season 4. We all know how rushed All Stars 1 was, and it literally was just a cash grab. But after the absolute critical and fan failure, we actually don't see any spin-offs for a couple years. Seasons 5, 6, and 7 all trek on with no subsequent spin-offs or specials airing in between. Viewership also seemed to waver a bit during this period. After getting over 500,000 viewers during Season 5, Seasons 6 and 7 dropped down to around 200,000 and 300,000 viewers for their premieres. For a show that was breaking Logo records just a few seasons prior, something was happening, and the fans were not tuning in as much as they had been. Bring in All Stars 2. Now, this revamped version of All Stars premiered in 2016, right after Season 7, and definitely was made to bring back fans who had stopped tuning in to the newer seasons. Bringing back fan favorites from the last few seasons and iconic figures from early seasons, the viewership skyrocketed, and the fandom was sparked into a frenzy over the controversial decisions and moments made in the season. I really do think the queens sending themselves home, that twist, was made to generate buzz and bring audiences back to the show. And damn, did it work, because ever since All Stars 2, Drag Race has been on a steady incline in viewers, media frenzy, spin-offs, and of course, money. But there is a short-lived spin-off in between Season 7 and All-Stars 2 that is generally forgotten about. The first international version of the franchise, actually, the Switch Drag Race, which premiered on Chilean television in the final quarter of 2015 and featured queens who had competed on the American version of Drag Race, such as Gia Gunn and Candy Ho, vying for a new crown. Now, this first international season did not feature RuPaul and really was a different show than Drag Race, but it was the first attempt to adapt the series to international territories. The second would be Drag Race Thailand in 2018, a cult favorite that has gained more attention and viewership after its airing than it ever did when it was actually being produced, so much so that it has been announced that it will be returning for a third season next year. Following All-Stars 2 in 2016, we've basically had All-Stars every year now. Viewership of both the regular version and All-Stars editions of Drag Race have been climbing every year, with the premiere of Season 13 of Drag Race getting 1.3 million viewers across all platforms and channels in the US. The series was reaching new heights of success, mostly due to the switch to VH1, starting with the 9th season. Now, on a mainstream and easily accessible cable channel, more people could access the show. And Drag Race was changing from a niche TV show for queer people into a mainstream success watched by gay and straight audiences alike. From 2019 onward, new international versions have been popping up like wildfires. Attempts to capitalize on the runaway success of this show have proven to be honestly kind of hit or miss. Some editions like Drag Race UK and Drag Race Holland, Drag Race España have all been huge successes, while others like Canada's Drag Race and Drag Race Down Under, not so much. These are all the current and future editions of Drag Race currently in production, a total of 10. Next year, we have Queens of the World, which is basically American Idol for Drag Race. We have Drag Race Winners, and we have UK versus the World, which is basically International All-Stars. Whether these will be yearly editions like the regular All-Stars or just one-off seasons is yet to be determined and will probably hinder on how well they are received by viewers. Okay, so there's 13 shows, but there's also more spin-offs that have been in production over the last few years. Besides 2 holiday specials in 2015 and 2018, and another airing later this year, we have Secret Celebrity Drag Race, which is basically a revamped version of Drag U, but with celebrities, and Vegas Review. It's kind of something you would see on E!, a more reality TV type show. As of the end of 2021, that is 16 shows currently on the air or going to be airing in 2022. 16 shows is a lot of TV to keep up with. So now that begs the question, is there too much Drag Race? And my answer is no. Okay, hear me out. I think you can look at this list of TV shows as a choose-your-own-adventure kind of deal. You don't need to watch every single one. There are lots of different shows to pick and choose from. Some might be your style, while some might be someone else's style. Me personally, I hate reading subtitles, so I haven't watched Holland or España, and I hate singing competition shows, so I probably won't watch Queens of the World. I also didn't watch Secret Celebrity Drag Race, so my list of shows looks like this. Not as bad. I feel like because of the level of super standom that a lot of Drag Race fans feel towards the show, they think that they have to tune in every week for every iteration and every spinoff, and that is just not true. My entire income stems from watching the show and talking about it on the internet. Thank you, by the way, for paying my bills. I appreciate it. And I watch a little more than half of the content WoW is pumping out of this franchise. It's very easy to get sucked in to the fandom of Drag Race because there just isn't any other show like it. For a show of this quality and this much success to be aimed at and for queer audiences is a brand new concept and has become a major part of our queer culture. Seeing people like us on TV telling their stories and being proudly, unabashedly queer is a groundbreaking moment in the culture of LGBTQ people. We grew up watching nothing but heteronormative, mostly white, mostly straight television all of our lives. Seeing gay people on TV was like flipping to Maury and watching those like crazy people that were so stereotypically gay and put in such a negative light. Or going to watch Dawson's Creek where these hot, straight white dudes were pretending to be gay for some shocking storyline. Or like Will and Grace. But now we can put on a season of Drag Race and watch gay people telling their stories, and people of color telling their stories, and now non-binary and trans people, slowly, but hopefully more in the future, telling their stories as well. And that's why there can never be too much Drag Race. Is the representation on Drag Race perfect? No, it's not. But it is still better than almost anything else you can find on network television, especially. The more exposure to queer history, to queer identities that there is on television, the better. Another thing that I think people might be forgetting when they share the sentiment that there's just too much is that all of these international franchises popping up is nothing out of the ordinary for competition reality shows. Survivor has almost 80 versions across the globe. Big Brother has over 60. The Voice almost to 150. If the format works, countries around the globe are going to run to make their own versions and showcase these programs to their own territories. The fact that we have as few versions of International Drag Race right now as we do is kind of shocking to me, and I would expect just more and more and more to be popping up in the coming years. But you don't ever hear people say there's too much Survivor or there's too much Big Brother because they don't feel the need to watch every single iteration of the show across the globe. Eventually, Drag Race probably will have over 50 iterations, and it would be insane to think you could watch every single one. So eventually, there will be a cutoff for most people where they say, okay, this is it. I'm drawing the line. This is how much I'm going to watch. But the people in those other territories that these editions are popping up in still deserve to have their own content. So that's the argument. You saying, well, there's a Philippines Drag Race and there's a Brazilian Drag Race and I don't have time for all of it. Well, maybe it's not made for you. Maybe it's made for these countries to have their own versions. And if people want to tune in, they can. But it is not our job to consume every single edition of this show. I do think that it is important, though, that Drag Race be as far across the globe as it possibly can, in every country it possibly can, showcasing queer artists and queer people from every country around the world as it possibly can. I would say the casual viewer watches regular Drag Race, probably All Stars, and like maybe UK since it's been popping off lately. They're not worried about every single franchise, and I think at some point the super fandom is going to have to take some pointers from them. So I am going to pick and choose what I want to watch and what I don't. And I don't stress out about the things that I missed, and I don't judge people based on what they do or don't watch. And I feel like that's gonna have to be a pretty shared sentiment at this point with so many shows on the horizon. And they're going to keep making spin-offs and keep making other versions. And I say bring it. That means more opportunities for queer people, more exposure for queer people, and more queer people on our televisions and televisions all around the world. So that will always be a win in my book. Let me know what you think. What shows have you been watching? What shows have you not been watching? And of the shows that have been announced but not aired yet, which one are you most excited for? I have to say, this All Winners and UK versus the World, looking at those casts, I am so excited. I really hope they don't let us down because I think both of them would be really fun additions to the Drag Race franchise to do maybe every couple of years. Or if it does well, I'm sure they'll do it every single year. So we'll just have to wait and see. But thank you guys so much for watching. Here are the links to all of my socials and all of my patrons who I appreciate and love very much. It has been honestly a pretty short day, comparatively, solving the mystery of how much Drag Race is too much Drag Race. And the answer is the limit does not exist. So thank you guys, and I will see you in the next one.